Welcome back. For decades, Black Americans struggled with racial bias in regards to home ownership. This continues to be a struggle for many Black Americans, as the Bronx Times reports Black home ownership in New York City is on a 20-year decline. Joining me to dissect the racial inequities within NYC home ownership and solutions to help mitigate this problem is Sabrina Bazile, Senior Program Manager of the Black Homeownership Project. Sabrina, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about your organization, the Black Homeownership Project?
Yeah, the Black Homeownership Project is an initiative from the Center for New York City Neighborhoods, which aims to grow Black wealth and increase decrease the number of Black homeowners in New York City and provide high quality services for Black homeowners. We offer support with estate planning services, foreclosure prevention, landlord services, home repair and maintenance. And as part of this project, we just launched Generation to Generation program to assist with estate planning, preserving and growing intergenerational Black wealth in Black households across New York City. And this program will increase awareness of estate planning services and provide free estate planning for low-income Black homeowners. And this is what I want to talk about today.
Now, Black home ownership in New York City has been on a decline over the past few decades, and home ownership has been an ongoing issue for many Black Americans. For those who don't know, can you give us a little background on the severity of this issue?
Yeah, so our research and conversations with Black homeowners, landlords, brokers, and housing counselors have shown a loss of Black homeowners due to existing structural and intentionally discriminatory racist housing practices and policies that have worked to strip and threaten Black households of intergenerational wealth. And actually, in March of 2021, the Black Homeownership Project found that the number of Black households in NYC declined by 13% over the past 20 years due to unsustainable and predatory mortgage practices, skyrocketing prices, and adverse financial impacts from deed theft, scams, and tax liens. And as we know, Black homeowners have been historically left out of housing policies that have benefited their white counterparts that were disproportionately affected by the Great Recession, redlining, and of course the ongoing COVID pandemic and resulting economic instability has only exacerbated these systemic issues.
Now, when we talk about a decline in Black home ownership, are these people losing their homes, or is everyone else gaining more and maybe Black Americans are staying the same?
It's people losing their homes because of predatory actors specifically targeting Black homeowners. We're seeing both from a system of predatory tax liens. These are, unpaid property taxes, water bills that are sold to third party that disproportionately occur in Black communities. But we're also seeing deed theft. These are practices that aim to take title of someone's home without them realizing. But we're seeing these predatory and aggressive tactics that work to strip and threaten Black wealth and Black homeownership and ultimately make Black homeowners and make owning a home difficult. And so we're seeing the rate of Black homeownership staying the same over the years, but at the same time, we're losing Black homeowners. We're seeing a decline in Black households, and that is due to predatory practices, tax liens, deed theft, and scams that disproportionately target Black households and lead to a loss of property and equity.
So you talked a lot about, a lot of these predatory practices, and you're mentioning that they actually are targeting Black households. Can you go into detail a little bit more about what those practices are?
Yeah, so as I said, these predatory and aggressive tactics and practices that disproportionately target Black homeowners through tax liens, foreclosures, deed theft scams, also through aggressive and harassing calls for all cash buyouts. You may see the signs on buildings, for all cash. We take, all cash. Homes that are usually undervalued. But these tactics and practices work to, again, strip and undermine on the large scale Black wealth, because they're aggressive, they're harassing, they're targeting vulnerable Black homeowners. They're making keeping a home difficult. They're predatory, and it's not by accident. They stem from structural and intentionally racist policies that, at its core, make homeownership for Black New Yorkers difficult.
Now, the Center for New York City Neighborhoods found that areas with a higher proportion of Black and Hispanic homeowners have lower home values, even if the age and square footage of their properties are the same. Can you tell me more about how Black and Hispanic New Yorkers are affected by these racial disparities?
Ultimately, it's racism. It's the history of structurally and intentionally racist and discriminatory housing practices and policies that threaten Black and Hispanic households of generational wealth. And it's something that Black and Brown household homeowners and renters have been dealing with for forever. It's the legacy of racist housing practices, especially redlining and predatory lending, that have led to the Great Recession and have made it impossible for many Black and Hispanic families across the U.S. To have the opportunity to tap into the equity building benefits of homeownership. And so that's what we're doing through Generation to Generation, is providing awareness of estate planning and free estate planning services for low-income Black homeowners, with the goal of preserving that equity and combating the predatory actors and increasing awareness of deed theft and kind of that equity stripping that we've seen throughout history, and combating that ongoing cycles, or that history of the ongoing cycles of real estate speculation and displacement.
Now, the racial wealth gap comes up a lot in these conversations. Can you explain how home ownership is linked to generational wealth? Because unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people understand how they're connected.
I mean, the racial wealth gap is tied to the history of like the racist housing practices that I've been talking about. It's tied to the discriminatory mortgage lending practices, causing disparities where Black home buyers pay more to buy a home, pay greater in closing costs. They, on average, $7,000 more, pay higher interest rates than their white counterparts. We have a predatory system of tax liens. Again, tax liens are unpaid property taxes or water bills that are then sold to third-party lien servicing companies that can then add more fees and interest to the owner's debt. And these tax liens are disproportionately occur and impact Black communities, allowing private investors to profit from the financial struggles of Black homeowners. The racial wealth gap occurs again through the adverse financial impacts of deed theft and scams, where deed theft is the practice of taking title from someone's home without them knowing. And we see deed theft occurring kind of like the hot spot in Brooklyn, especially, and in the Bronx, and disproportionately targeting and aimed at especially vulnerable Black homeowners who may not have, traditional title to their home, and have that important estate planning, and have their documents in order, and to pass on to their heirs. And that leads to a loss of equity, and that leads or loss of property, and that's then widening that racial wealth gap, because as we know, homeownership is the largest vehicle to equity and to wealth. And so
Right.
by losing that equity, we're then widening that gap, wealth gap.
So your organization actually, has a few solutions, and one of them is free estate planning services. Can you quickly tell me a little bit more about those services?
Well, first, estate planning is the process of designating, who will receive your property at the end of your life, and it's the process of, gathering your wills, your trusts, your healthcare proxies, and designating who will receive your assets and your property. But most important, it's your equity and this protection of your wealth, and protection against these scammers and predatory actors from stealing title from owners and heirs. And so this newly launched Generation to Generation estate planning pilot from the Black Homeownership Project will provide awareness of estate planning and free estate planning services to especially low-income Black homeowners, with the goal of preserving and growing intergenerational wealth in Black households across the city. But more importantly, Generation to Generation will fund nonprofit local housing counselors and legal service providers in the North Bronx and in Central Brooklyn, who will lead in outreach and engagement, as well as in individualized estate planning, to educate and engage Black homeowners on the necessity of doing proactive estate planning, and expand the availability of free estate planning services. They'll do workshop curricula, presentations on what is estate planning, and particularly in Central Brooklyn and the North Bronx.
Thank you so much. So we are at the end of our show. Can you quickly just tell us your social media so people can stay up to date with your organization?
Yes, we're at CNYCN, but also you can look us up at bhp.cnycn.org, or you can call us at 646-786-0888 to learn more.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.